Good day, ladies and gentlemen. We are the Group 2, and today we will discuss to you about the story New Yorker in Tondo by Marcelino Agana. So this report is produced to know and dig deeper into this short play. This is written in 1950 as a funny comedy about a girl named Kikai who went to the New York for 10 months and was changed in culture and evidenced by how she speaks. It includes the author's background, the background of the story, the elements of the story, a summary in the post-colonial analysis of the story. Knowing and understanding these particular parts would help us know more about the story and the criticism suitable to the story. So the reporters used in the post-colonial analysis were third worlding, creolization, orientalism, and hybridity. As the report continues, we will be going to analyze the story one by one in a post-colonial criticism way. So the analysis of the story or the short play of Marcelino Agana Jr. through the scheme of post-colonialist analysis has a more significant impact on the people who will be able to read and watch the story. Realizing the cause of a story is like acknowledging the person's existence. This report will provide a good background of how Western superiority and inferiority are used in this short play. So without further ado, let's get to listen to my groupmates.
Marcelino Agana Jr. leads a private life. His personal information was difficult to come by. He was born between the years 1895 and 1955. His wife, Venice Borja Agana, is the only member of his immediate family who has been acknowledged by name. He and his wife had 6 children, but they were not named. Marcelino Agana Jr. was a playwright who penned one of the most well-known Filipino comedies that has been played numerous times over the years. One of his most well-known humorous pieces is New Yorker in Tondo. It is a narrative of a girl named Kikai who traveled to New York and fell in love with it. Humor and irony are used to portray a genuine image of a Filipino life.
Hi everyone, my name is Christina and I will be introducing the elements of the story and the setting. So we have here the elements of the story, which is composed of the setting, the characters, conflict, symbolism, the type of play, plot, which includes the rising action, falling action, climax, and the resolution. We also have here the point of view and the theme. These are the backbone of a good short story play. This helps the reader understand the structure and the whole point of the story. Now, the setting. New Yorker in Tondo story takes us to the parlor of the Mendoza house in Tondo, Manila. This is where everything took place.
So now I'm going to discuss the main characters of the story. First, Tony. Tony is the modern Tondo boy of the story. He is considered a two-timer because he is the fiancé of both Kikai and Nana. He's a kind, loving, and caring. Next, Kikai or Francesca. Kikai is also known as Francesca. He's the New Yorker in Tondo. Initially a Binondo young lady. She studied at New York. She's a social climber and trying hard to become an American. She's changed a lot when she went back to her hometown, which is in Tondo. She is Tony's fiancé. Next, Nena. Nena is Kikai's childhood best friend. She's a boyish and a strong type of girl. She likes Tony and has been engaged to Tony for a month already. Totoy. Totoy is the first Kanto Tondo at Chope street kid. Follows Nana any place she goes. He's Tony's best friend. He's caring, sweet, and very moronic yet extremely faithful with his compassion. Next, Aling Atang or Mrs. Mendoza. The consistently mindful mother of Kikai. She is a genuine young lady and despises the manner in which Kikai needs her. She is a friend of Tony's mother. Next, Chumba, the others dancer. The Kanto young men of Tondo. They are Aling Atang's neighbors, otherwise called the Wanabi. They are led by Chumba, a singer and a dancer. The recurring characters, Janet and Hamal. They are Kikai's friends from California.
Moving on to the conflict is man versus man and man versus self. One of the conflict in the narrative is that Kikai adopted all of the New Yorkers' ways and attitude and carried them back to the Philippines, where the battle between Kikai and Francesca is about overcoming their attitude and behavior, which has also led to confrontation with her childhood friends. So, on the other hand, their love and friendship are also symbolized by the mango tree, where they share jokes under the tree and laugh at the little things. Meanwhile, acculturation is symbolized by the name Francesca. Francesca had been abroad for a long time and had embraced American costumes and values. Francesca has assimilated herself into American culture. So lastly, the author employs a variety of tactics, tools, phrases, and even complete sentences to bring a new, amusing aspect of life to light. Humor is frequently seen in literature, theater, and films. With the primary goal of making the audience laugh, its purpose is to break up the audience monotony, boredom, and tedium by portraying a realistic picture of Filipino life.
Good day, everyone. I am Johara Mastura, and I'm going to discuss the plot structure of New Yorkers in Tondo. So let's start with the rising action. Rising action, it is composed of a series of events that build on the conflict and increase the tension, sending the story racing to a dramatic climax. So the rising action started when Kikai went back to Tondo. Her childhood friends visited her. Tony, Totoy, and Nena visited Kikai because they wanted to know how much she had changed, even her attitude and name. Climax. As we all know, this is where the drama begins. This is the intense part of the story. So Kikai shared her experience of life when she lived in New York City. She very much compares her life in New York to Tondo. Toto and Nena decided to go outside to visit the mango tree where they spent their time during childhood. Falling action. This portion of the narrative helps deflate the plot's tension. So when Tony and Kikai talk about their engagement, Tony feels insulted when Kikai says the words, "Imagine a New York girl marrying a Tondo boy." This leads to their misunderstanding, and Nena and Totoy also join the quarrel. After the quarrel, Totoy and Nena decided to go out together. Tony and Kikai continue their conversation, and Kikai apologized for what she said. That's all. Thank you.
As we know that resolution of the story is something to do with the end or the ending of the story. Here, we will know what happens to the characters after the conflict is resolved. So here, in the story of New York in Tondo, the resolution here is when Kikai is willing to change and go back to her personality when she was in Tondo for the sake that she still loved Tony. Sana all. Without Kikai remembering her old character, asked Tony if he can forgive her for what she forgot about her new personality and recognize that they are still engaged. Diba mga marupok? Bitoy, they still love each other. So yan lang po, kaya wala ako. Hehe.
For the point of view used in the story is a dramatic point of view, because the narrator is telling the story, which is not the character in the story. Also, the author chooses to present the story's actions rather than the eternal thoughts or emotions of a character. Now, moving on for the theme. The theme of the story depicts the reality of most people forgetting their true identity once they move abroad. They change and choose to neglect their homeland. Kikai has adapted all of the New York styles and attitude and brought it with her to the Philippines. And this is true for some Filipinos living abroad. Though we can't blame those who changed their ways because they need to integrate themselves into the new environment to have a better life. Nevertheless, one should never forget to look back on where he came from.
New Yorker in Tondo is about a Filipino girl named Kikai who went to the United States in New York City in order to study hair culture and beauty science. After just a year, she went home, making everything identical to what she experienced in New York, encompassing language, looks, style, manner. She also persuaded her mother to be like her.
One day, Tony heard that Kikai had arrived from New York and wanted to visit her. Tony was Kikai's love interest, whom she got secretly engaged to before she left Tondo. Tony surprised her with a bouquet of flowers. Their other childhood friends, Totoy and Nena, also went and visited Kikai.
As Kikai woke up, she immediately entertained and talked to her friends. However, they were all surprised by what they saw. Kikai has become a completely different girl. She doesn't even want to be called Kikai. She insists that everybody calls her Francesca from then on. She tells them about all her experiences in New York. Kikai also kept on comparing New York to Tondo.
And after that, when Tony and Kikai were alone in a room, Tony tried to talk to her about their engagement issue before she left the country. And suddenly, when Tony did that one, Kikai didn't listen. She always ignored Tony. But in the end, she said that being engaged to Tony was nothing but a childish act, and that he has to forget about it. She even belittled Tony by saying, "Imagine a New Yorker girl marrying a Tondo boy." Tony got irritated over this, almost hurting her out of anger, but he was able to control himself. He instead confronted Kikai, rebuked her actions, and told her that New York has really changed her.
Toto and Nena saw their argument. Nena found out that Kikai denied her engagement with Tony. At that moment, Nina and Tony revealed their secret engagement. Tony and Kikai were shocked, but more so infuriated. Fighting immediately followed. Eventually, it came to an end. Totoy confesses her feelings to Nena, and she accepts it. They both left. Tony and Kike had another disagreement, but later on, Kike realized everything that Tony said. She asked for an apology. Kike also promised that she would revert back to her usual self. Tony forgave her, and they got back together.
Hello everyone, quick introduction. I'm April Taganon from Group 2, and I'm here in front of you to talk about one of the critical lenses that used in the story of New Yorker in Tondo, which is the third world subaltern perception of Beatrice Spivak. So one of the characteristics that Kike shows in which she degrades the people around her as below her, as she classifies herself as one of a New Yorker, which is considered as a one of the first world civilized people. There's the point when she said that she doesn't want to get married to a Tondo boy. She was able to identify a New Yorker is more civilized than the other people around her. When she got back into the Philippines, she was embarrassed to identify herself as one of them, as it represents her devotion to Western culture. This is where the third worldling comes into the picture. This is insinuation reflects to a third worldling.
Hybridity in the characteristics of Kikai. Hybridity is a post-colonial criticism of Homi Bhabha, and the theory tackles the psychic influence of Western thoughts on the Eastern civilization. It is also called syncretism, a mixture or blended manifestation of two different cultures. Hybridization can also be viewed as a social struggle from the cultural perspective of a human being, according to Dr. Yu. In the passage, Kikai is garbed in a trailing gown, trimmed with fur at the neck and hemline. From one hand, she dangles a large silk handkerchief, which she keeps waving about as she walks and talks. On the other hand, she carries a very long cigarette holder with an unlighted cigarette affixed. Kikai's manner and appearance are, to use a Hollywood expression, chi-chi mad. In these passages from the short play, Kikai or Francesca is considered a native character in the story, but as the story progresses, she acquires the foreign culture through her studies in New York. As a result of her acquired Western and Eastern acculturation, she can be classified now as a hybrid cultural character. When she was introduced to the cultural aesthetics of a foreign country, she entirely lost her love for her country. Kikai readily discards recollections of her childhood in this parody in favor of her newfound love for New York, whose manners and culture she has chosen to assimilate. This process of cultural acquisition might somehow provoke the third space in which the character's cultural satisfaction is tested. In the story, Kikai had a psychological dilemma dealing with her psychological dilemma.
I'm Luis, and we will going to talk about the creolization of language used by Kikai. So, Franz Fanon's assumptions about the creolization theory is that we will anticipate the blending of two distinct cultures, which will result in an individual developing a new identity due to creolization. The language presented in the story has achieved creolization. A Creole is the language that we speak since we were born, whereas the Pidgin is still used predominantly as a second language of intergroup communication. In the story, it depicts that the second language of Kikai is English language, where she preferred to be called as Francesca, and she also requested the people in her house to call her mother as Miss Mendoza because it is the way that New Yorkers address people formally. The Creole is the Filipino language in which she despises at first but finds it comforting at the end of the story.
Orientalism as viewed in the play. In his book Orientalism, which was published in 1978, Said observed that the diluted forms of traditional Orientalism are prevalent in the both new and old academic language used by hard and soft schools. The dogmas of Orientalism can still be found under pure form in some certain studies. The Orient is viewed as the abnormal, underdeveloped, and inferior or below par compared to the West, which is the superior ones, the intelligent, the advanced, the civilized, and the humane. In her statement when asked by Tony what is the current status of their relationship, Kika replied with, "Pero imagine mo nga, a New Yorker marrying a Tondo boy, nakakatawa." By referring to herself as a New Yorker, she displayed animosity towards Tony, the Tondo boy, which is her fiancé and not to mention her old friend. This statement reveals a condescending attitude towards the man who is his fiancé and friend. Kikai had after staying in New York for almost a year, Kikai had embraced a Western way of mannerism, fashion, and also a style of thinking. And as a consequence, she referred to herself as a refined and powerful lady. This led her to believe that she was superior to others. However, she had a deep-seated hatred for her fiancé Tony, who was of Filipino descent, who was an Orient, and she treated him as though he were of lesser social standing. She even laughed at his face to show him the gap of their levels. Kikai, who was born in the Philippines but relocated in New York, asked that she be addressed as Francesca due to the fact that a lot of people in New York called her that name. Additionally, they believed that Francesca was of Italian descent, which flattered her, so she accepted it with grace. But she hated the name given to her even
to her ever she was a child, which is Kikai. So Kikai, a young girl who first started selling puto on the street, had reinvented herself as this classy lady. Moreover, she requested that her mother get a makeover so that she could appear to be an American because Kikai herself is one, as she had thought. She asserts that she does not have any memories of a tree where they spent most of their childhood climbing and playing. Instead, she reminisced of a tree in New York that she had only known for a little over a year.
Oh! Aling
Ikaw pala yan, Tony! Kala ko ba nasa probinsya ka? Bakit ka ganoon makatingin? Nagpagupit lang ako.
Akala ko lang po kasi daw sige.
Sige mo po mo. Pili ka pa rin, bata.
Nasaan nga po pala si Kikay?
Tutulog pa.
Tutulog eh, alauna na po.
Sabi niya, New York people do not wake up before 12 o'clock. Kalahin mo yung batang yun? Pagdating sa Pilipinas, party ka agad. Punta agad sa bar, doon sa metro. Mga ganun-ganun sayawan niya. Gusto mo ba yun?
Parang masanay pa po kayo kay Kikay.
Alam mo yan, hindi ako ganun.
Kaya ako po pala tanong. Kasi hindi ko rin po kasi nalaman na dumating ako kasi sa Facebook ko lang ngayon.
No, Lunes lang siya dumating. And look what has happened to me. My hair is cut, my eyebrows are newly shaved. Look at even my nails are manicure. Pag pupunta nga lang ng palengke, kailangan nakapintura daw yung mukha ko. Ganun ba ako, Totoy?
Kwento naman tungkol sa New York.
Oh my gosh, New York, New York! Are you ready to hear the most exciting, most fantastic, most amazing, most romantic story ever?
Gano'ng katagal ka na ba kasi doon?
10 months, 7 days, 4 hours, 21 minutes.
Doon pa rin siya. Actually, hindi ba siya umalis doon?
Yes. I feel as if I were still there. New York, across the sea. But I'm not there. I'm here. I'm here. They tell me I am home. But how can this be home? Home is where your heart aches for. My home is across the sea. Oh, my New York. My dear New York.
Dapat umalis na tayo dito.
Oo nga, baka nakakastorbo tayo.
Kailangan natin siya mag-reminisce.
Reminisce sa New York.
New York? My dear old New York.
Oh, listen! Listen! I'm so excited to tell this story. We have this tree there. It's called our tree. We New Yorkers, we go there every spring. It's by the Battery. We say hello to it. Hello! And watch its trees. Its branches, its leaves grow. It is like New York. Undying, immortal, forever green, forever undying. Oh, my New York. There's nothing like that tree.
Ganon din nag-feel sa ating tree, Kikay.
What tree?
Yung mango tree sa inyong bakuran.
I think you're mistaken.
Naalala ko pa, inaakyat natin yung mango tree na yun, pinipitas natin yung mga manggong hilaw, tapos sinatori kumukuha, tapos kakainin natin lahat hanggang sumakit ang ating mga tiyan.
Nahuli nga ako ni Aling Atang eh.
Oo nga eh, tapos tumatakbo ka sa labas na naka-brief, tapos habang sinisigaw mo, ibalik mo yung shorts ko! Ibalik mo yung shorts ko!
I've gone back to my senses.
Kikay, ganyan suot?
Well, hindi lang naman yung pananamit ng tao. Nagdidigta kung sino siya, diba?
Kikay?
I'm sorry. Sobrang, ewan ko kung anong nangyari sa akin. I don't know. Hindi ko alam. Sorry.
Sure ka bang bumalik ka na sa dati?
Yeah. No. What the hell? Oh.
Buti na mo. Pa-English ka pa, hindi maganyan Kikay dati.
Hindi naman ganun kadaling masanay. Ang tagal ko din dun sa New York, no? Ang konti-konti nga dun eh.
Enjoy ka ba dun?
Hindi nga, konti nga dun.
So once again, we are the group 2. Thank you so much for listening.